What's going on, everyone? This is Sherry, and you are tuned into She Said What She Said, the podcast where I interview badass women in the sports world and beyond. And tonight we have another proud alum of the Pennsylvania State University. However, she is going to represent some new sports for us. Yay! I haven't had a new sport in, probably a month, maybe. So pretty excited to have a little bit of new sports. And not only she has actually a few new sports, because this woman, like, when I was Googling her, because sometimes we Google people, no problem. It was like, she's this sport and that sport. I'm like, that's not related. So I'm very excited to hear. So currently, her current sport is cycling. She is a 3-time USA Masters champion. However, her prior sports were skeleton, which if you guys were watching during the Winter Olympics, Snacks and I had a long conversation about how insane the sport of skeleton was, and how we had this whole convo of if we would rather do skeleton or luge, like which way do you want to go flying to your death, frontward or backward. I think we actually picked the double person luge, so we would stack each other and go down. That was our winter sport one. She's a CrossFit coach as well. And then she briefly stepped onto the Penn State track team, but she found that she enjoyed rowing better. So again, we have leg sports, we have flying down the air sports, we have the going through the water sports. She represents literally a badass athlete. I bet you she could do any sport we throw at her, but those are the ones that she picked. So without further ado, Miss Emily Schelberg, come on in.
Hi, Sherry. That was quite an introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've been told that people like my intros, and but that's why I have you guys as my guests, right? Because I do a little Googling, I look at them, and I'm like, oh wow, I like that. That's impressive. Holy shit. What is she doing?
Thanks. Yeah, quite the flair, quite the flourish.
I know. And your like variety of sports is like here. You have winter, you have summer, you have indoor, you have outdoor. There was like no method to your madness, and I absolutely love that.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a little method. Truly, CrossFit is a power sport.
Mm-hmm.
Bobsled, rowing is a power sport, especially if you're doing shorter distances. There's a little aerobic capacity there. And then skeleton is a true power sport, right? It's all about the push. And then cycling, I'm a track cyclist. So my races are less than 40 seconds typically. So also power and sprinting. So I'm what you call the laziest athlete around. I don't want to work any harder than I have to. I like going fast for a short amount of time.
Fantastic. So if it's like over a minute, like
I'm out. Nope.
You're out. This is not
hands on the knees, breathing difficulty. Yeah. Even going up the flights of stairs can be difficult on some days. So.
Right? Yeah. Where you're like, I just walked up a hill. Woo!
Like, why? Right.
Like, I know I'm in super good shape, but like, I was just out of town. It's like the retreat you're talking about. The lake, there was a bit of a hill to get down it. And I'll tell you, walking up that hill, I was like,
what happened? Thought I was athletic.
You guys.
Wait up.
Hold on. I'm tired. Sheesh. Yeah. So I get it. Yeah. It's if I'm not if you're not in the actual competition, like the stairs, the hills, those things can be rough. But I wanted to, because I was like, all right, you have all these sports, but let's bring you back to your small Emily, little wee Emily. How did you get into sports as a young one, and which sports were you doing at a young age?
So I started track and field in grade school. That was my first, and I kind of always had like a little bit of natural ability in terms of sprinting, and so I excelled really well even in grade school, and then went on to high school and kind of added jumps to that and did pretty well there. But I knew going through high school that I was trying to figure out how to use my athleticism. And the only thing I could really come up with was to join the military. So that's kind of the way that I went and, stayed athletic through.
Right. You're a Marine. I forgot to put that in the intro.
Yeah. So it was grade school, and it was it was almost all track. I did like something called like I forget what it was, like the fitness team in high school, which was like essentially like the presidential fitness challenge, but you would compete against other schools for it. So like, there was different elements too. There was like push-ups and sit-ups, and it was like how many, accumulate a certain amount of time or whatever. But so, which I kind of liked because it took away the focus on like any specific technical skill or like kind of focusing too early on a technical skill, and just worked on being fit, which was, I think, a good kind of goal especially for younger kids.
Nice. And then, we had the presidential fitness stuff because you're from Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Hershey?
I grew up in Hershey. Yeah.
There you go. It's like my Googling skills.
So on point.
Thank you. Yeah. So then, military and then Penn State, because you popped in right after I graduated. So we just missed each other by a few months.
Yeah. I think you and I are probably still the same age though, because I had applied to Penn State right out of high school, obviously, but then I was in the Marine Corps and like went through reserves, and I got deployed. So I got accepted to Penn State and then deployed. So I missed a year or two there. So we're probably right around the same age. Very close.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw it because I'm an 84 baby, not
85.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, exactly. And so you tried out track at Penn State, but then you kind of found your love for crew there. Yeah,
crew was
how the hell did that happen?
Well, I mean, I'd been with Penn State's track and field team. I'd just come back from deployment and like went right into school, and I really had a hard time kind of adjusting from the intensity of deployment and being in the Marine Corps to the intensity of high level Division I sports and maintaining my grades. And it all was fine, but I felt like it was just too much pressure right away. And so I kind of took a step back, and crew at Penn State is a club sport. So at least on the women's side, I think it's both women and men's. And it was more like a way to stay fit, have a purpose, have a sport that I can continue to compete in, but also more of a like social club, right? So there wasn't so much intensity and pressure to perform or to compete at a really high level.
And why did you pick crew? Because I know there's other club sports at Penn State as well.
Yeah, it's true. I don't really remember why. I mean, I've had a lot of concussions, I'll be honest. So memory can be fuzzy sometimes. But I remember it being an early sport, and I had a lot of conflicts with classes. Crew practices very early in the morning. And it's actually a leg-driven sport. I know people think it's like an arm sport, but there's a lot of your feet are kind of strapped in your seat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it just kind of jived. And I just want to try something new and different, and put yourself out there kind of thing. But the mornings, I'm very much a morning person, so that kind of jive with my attitude too.
And thinking of Penn State's campus, where the hell did you practice crew? I can't think of a river.
Exactly. So
is there a river?
There's a lake about 30 to 40 minutes outside of Penn State. So we were getting up in the morning. Yeah. So we were getting up, I want to say like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then driving out. Yeah. We had to meet up and like carpool together, and then, the boats would be out. We'd take the boats out there and come back. So a lot of really frosty, chilly, wet mornings. But yeah, it's not on campus at all. There's no water, obviously, by Penn State.
I know. I'm like thinking,
it's a landlocked.
It's been a few years since I've been back to Penn State, but I'm like, all right, the cows are over there. Right. This way we have that mountain. Where is there?
I want to say it was called Bald Eagle State Park. I think that's what it was.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and we also obviously, like in the fall and winter time, we train on ski ergs in the gym. So we most of the time in the gym.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, but when it was time to actually get on the water, you had to get a little drive out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell me too about, because I kind of skipped over this. What made you decide to join the Marines right out of high school instead of maybe going to college first, or
So a couple things. So I got accepted to the Naval Academy Prep School on a track scholarship. And I did go to the prep school. I went there for about 4 months, and then I dropped on request. I met my husband there, and he was a former Marine, or he was a Marine at the time, still is, and he had already deployed. And he and I were talking about, at that time, the Iraq War was very hot, and there was this concept that if you went through the academy, you would kind of miss your opportunity. At least there was looking back on it now, it's not true at all, but there was this kind of belief that that 4 or 5 years in college, you kind of miss being deployed or miss the ability to go to war. And
Okay.
Obviously for military personnel, the concept is to serve your country and get deployed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of staying back or missing out on the opportunity to do so was less than palatable for both of us. So we ended up dropping on requests from the school. Excuse me. And then I went into the Marine Corps boot camp right after that. But the whole reason for the military service was my great uncle was the deputy fire commissioner of New York City, and he was the oldest and longest serving fireman to die in 9/11. So when he passed away, I just had like an overwhelming sense to serve my country. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a long history of military service in our family, so it just kind of made sense.
Oh wow, that is incredible. Our buddy Frank is always popping on. Hey Frank, how are you?
What's up?
That is incredible. Thank you for sharing that. About your family in 9/11. I actually had back in December. I had a guest on. She's a basketball player. She went to she started freshman year at this basketball powerhouse in New York City that was in Brooklyn, right across the street from the Twin Towers. But she lived in the Bronx, and her parent, like after trying to get home that day, after all that, she switched schools.
She's like a mouse. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, the harrowing stories that you get from and obviously because my whole family, we have family that was downtown. Mm-hmm. We have family that was working for banks in very close to the towers. Obviously my great uncle and his sons were all in the fire department at the time. So, I mean, I would love to hear, a compilation of those stories, because it's like one of those things, right? Like everybody remembers where they were and what happened. And
absolutely.
I think the uniqueness of those stories and the bravery that everyday citizens showed at that time, like that's something, hopefully that gets recorded and people follow up on.
Yeah, it's great. Just listening to all right, you're covered in soot, right? Your school is closed. Public transit is closed.
Right.
How do you get from Brooklyn to the Bronx?
Terrifying.
Before everyone has cell phones, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just all those, and those are the stories that, right. I mean, it's just how people's everyday life was impacted, and things like her, she switched to, you know what I mean? How your whole course of your life for so many people got changed in just some ways very small, some ways very large.
Yeah, absolutely.
It definitely, and then inspired you to do your Marine, met your husband there. So, it's like all of course.
Yeah.
It's, that whole butterfly flaps the wings, and, that is your life trajectory. And so what was it like being deployed, especially so young? Because you were in Iraq?
Yes, I was in Iraq, from 2006 to 2007. I deployed with a artillery unit, which was an all-male unit that had been retasked as a military police unit. Mm-hmm. So their job was to protect the combat, so they were these essentially detainee facilities for any of the combatants that we arrested. They were, on these bases. Their job was to protect those prisons. They brought females on in case we had to detain any females or children, because obviously we're trying to respect the culture and wanted to be able to interview them and protect them the right way. I ended up actually becoming part of their convoy security team. So I would, I was on and if these I'll explain, but so I was a turret gunner on a 7-ton vehicle during convoy operations. So any supplies or people that had to be moved from base to base, very, very large truck. And on top of the truck is a very large weapon. And next to the weapon is me.
Wow.
So incredibly unique experience. Not a lot of females. I couldn't even imagine, how many females were able to do something like that. I think I'm probably one of very, very, very few that were able to do convoy security operations. It's not considered a combat position. However, the time that I was there, 2006, 2007, IEDs was the number one killer in the country.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So improvised explosive devices. So obviously being blown up on a truck was a threat every day.
Yeah. Huge threat. Huge threat. Mm-hmm.
Huge threat. Yeah. So, but ironically, the war was one of the best experiences that I've had in my life. I was so lucky to not suffer any, major deaths from the unit. We were safe pretty much the entire time in terms of, any kind of attacks on bases or things like that. So And I learned so much. I mean, I got to work with a incredible group of guys, and just learn more about myself too, like how to handle yourself in a situation like that. And obviously being, quote unquote, a minority or being female in that kind of environment, like it definitely, you have run-ins and you have experiences that can be negative, but it teaches you to maintain your own integrity and kind of learn about yourself a little more so that you can kind of manage those kind of events going forward.
Wow. So, and you're so young, you know what I mean?
I was 18 at the time, yeah.
Yeah, because at the time, I'm sure you felt like, all right, badass, but now, like, looking back at it, like, you were so young.
When I see kids that age, like, I'm like, where are your parents? Right, exactly. You're like, I don't understand. I mean, I was still very junior in the Marine Corps. I was a Lance Corporal to Corporal, so I was just starting to kind of take on responsibilities in terms of leadership with the military. But I think that was a great position to be in because you get to learn and get to be kind of shown exemplary ways of behavior that and discipline and all those things that come with the military that I truly value that. I think that was really what set me up well going forward.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I can see why when you went back to Penn State, you didn't really want
things were different. Yeah.
Your life perspective is a lot different after you have gone on a little vacation over to Iraq.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, culture shock would be the word for it. I mean, there's always this, you just have a different perspective when you go through things where you don't have food every day or you don't have water every day or whatever, the case may be, or you're dirty, you haven't showered in 16 hours or whatever, your life's in threat or danger at certain points. And I think when you come back, the perspective of trying to take competitive sports seriously again, and the intensity that you need to have at that level of competition was very, very difficult for me. I was like, guys, this is a sport. This is at the end of the day,
no one's gonna die. You know what I mean?
Right. And I felt I think the intensity of trying to maintain my academics and the sport and be as driven as you need to be to compete at that level, just kind of, there was a mismatch for sure.
Absolutely. And very, very understandable.
Yeah. It was great. I mean, I think that having my friends around me, having Matt, my husband, who had been a Marine, having someone who has deployed with you, and he was there at the same time I was. We weren't in the same unit, but he was there with me. And having that kind of tribe or that community that understands that is so important, because I could call him and be like, "Oh, I'm not dealing well with this. This is not. I don't feel like I fit in here. I was much older. I was already of drinking age. All the other kids are coming in much younger than me, and you're just I don't fit." And he was going through the exact same thing, and he was going to Bucknell University, which was 90 minutes.
Okay,
so I can't understate or overstate the relationship I have with my husband and how that really played a huge role in it.
Absolutely, yeah. Because going to the frat party at Friday night wasn't
your
biggest.
Right. Well, and I worked as an EMT at Penn State too. So seeing the fallout from the frat parties, you just I'm good. I'm not. That's not my scene. Yeah. So that changes your perspective too.
Absolutely. Well, it's fantastic you found crew out of all the random sports there. And then, but you stayed in the military.
Yes.
Correct. So how does that work? Do you take a brief?
So there's there's active
away, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's active duty and there's reservist. I was always a reservist. On my reserve contract, I got called up to deploy for the war, and then went back onto my reserve contract. While I was on reserves, you go once a month just for training, and then 2 weeks out of the year you go for a longer training.
Yeah, I've seen the commercials.
Right, exactly. Everyone knows contract, right? While I was at Penn State, I also went to officer candidate school to see whether or not I wanted to be an officer in the Marine Corps. So I spent 2 out of the 4 summers at Penn State in Quantico, Virginia. I graduated the program, but at the end of Penn State, I applied to Johns Hopkins and I got in there. So I released my contract with the Marine Corps and told them I didn't want to go anymore. So I ended up going to Hopkins instead.
Yeah, and then tell us about what you did. Johns Hopkins, no big deal, fantastic school.
Yeah, Hopkins was a dream come true. That was I could not believe or accept the fact that I gotten in when it happened. But so I went to Hopkins for a dual degree in nursing. So I started with we did a bachelor's degree in nursing for 14 months and then 2.5 years for my master's degree. So I'm currently a nurse practitioner in sports med.
And you specialize in sports med. So
there's a theme.
There's this very, very strong theme here of the body and the sports and just the love of the athleticism. And so then our next sport, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe our next sport is skeleton, or did I miss a sport somewhere in between crew and skeleton?
So I actually did CrossFit. CrossFit was
of course, right. And you're that was the gateway drug. Okay, yeah, so you're a CrossFit coach too. I mean,
it was the other cult I had to find.
That
was actually when I was at Penn State studying kinesiology. I was looking for like an internship, like to try to kind of figure out what I was going to do with that degree. And Penn State's CrossFit Nittany at the time. I'm not sure what their name is now, but Brian St. Andrews, he's still up there working that gym. Incredible facility, incredible guy. He took me on as his intern, and I kind of showed me the ropes on how to be a coach. Like, how do you teach someone to lift, and how do you do it properly, and how do you motivate your crew? And
there's a lot of ways you can get injured in CrossFit.
Oh my God, there's so many ways. And so and he was so good about teaching coaches how to assess those concerns. And he just has an incredible program, and I really valued, learning through him and that program. But yeah, CrossFit, I didn't really compete or try to compete in CrossFit until I moved away and I moved to a different CrossFit gym. But that was the next sport.
Just a little CrossFit. Okay, but I need to know. I need to know, and I didn't ask you this before because I was like, how the hell did you get into skeleton? That has got to be the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. So what made you look at that and be like, that looks like a great idea. I'm down for that one.
I don't think it's a secret that Marines specifically thrive on chaos and adrenaline and endorphin rushes and speed. And I think that they also thrive on being the best of everything, right? So you're trying to find a sport that's going to push you. I was actually... So there was a lifter, a friend of mine at CrossFit, the gym here in Maryland, who found a Facebook ad for basically like a combine, just like the NFL has combines. Bobsled and skeleton hold combines all over the country, and there was one close to us. So I started training because it was like, I think it was like 12 weeks out, like we knew about it. And I was like, all right, like I have to do certain parameters. It's like a 100-meter dash, I think, and like a broad jump and a power clean and a back squat. And I was like, all right, I'll train for that. And then like the weekend before, I was talking to my friend. He was like, dude, I was totally joking. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not trying out. And I was like, bro, I already signed up. Like, I'm going. So I went, and it was somewhere near Hagerstown, I think. So, group of people and like the coaches from the team come out and they run this little clinic thing, and I did well. I got the points that I needed to be basically invited to their like team camp intro situation. So that was in Lake Placid. So I went up there, I did that, and then I got invited onto their developmental program from there. And that was 2017, I want to say. Yeah, 17.
And do they like give you a choice of skeleton, luge, or bobsled, or do they be like, this is the one that you're doing?
Kind of. So luge is its own program. So USA Luge it's its own federation, and those folks start very young. So you essentially, if you're going to be on a luge team, from what I understand, they have these camps that they hold, and they keep them. Essentially, you're going to school, but you're also staying at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid. Yeah, so they'll have one of the parents will come and rotate through and like watch the kids, and they train and they go to school and things like that. Yeah, it's a very intense program.
Any idea why it's so different from like bobsled and skeleton?
I really couldn't tell you. All I know is that, I mean, obviously for bobsled, you need very big, powerful athletes, and you don't truly, to be a pusher, you don't need a lot of skill, right? They want you to, right? So the three other men pushing the sled, aside from the driver, strong and fast. And I think that really you don't kind of develop that until you're a mature adult. So I think they don't really need to spend a whole lot of time gathering younger kids to teach them that. Sure, drivers, I think that would be ideal. Skeleton, I think, would benefit from, starting kids a little younger. I'm not exactly sure why the program is as it is. But skeleton only really came back to the Olympics not too long ago too. So it could just be a function of the sport really kind of just getting back into.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I always thought of luge and skeleton kind of being like the sister sports. Yeah. So yeah. Are you, like I said, like, which way do you want to die? Do you want to go head first or which way?
And again, luge is more right upper body based, whereas bobsled and skeleton are all lower body.
Oh, I guess it makes sense.
Could be that too. I couldn't tell you why they're different that way. So to answer your question, when you go to the camp, they have basically you try out for both sort of. So they had, at least they did at the time. So I did a lot of, we had like a dry track that we would practice pushing on. And I wasn't as strong as the other athletes. The girls that go on the bobsled team are strong ladies and much stronger than I was. But the skeleton coach took an interest at that time. And so he kind of offered, he's like, why don't you try this sport? And so that's where I went from there.
Fantastic. So you spent some time in Lake Placid.
So much time in Lake Placid, yeah.
Which is awesome. So I actually, I collect shot glasses when I go places. I have a massive shot glass collection. I have like over 100 people give them to me. But so my mom was from upstate New York, and years ago at her parents' place, I found a shot glass from the Lake Placid Olympics.
Whoa.
And I asked my grandma, I was like kind of joking, but not really. I was like, hey, in your will, can you leave this one to me? And she's like, oh, just take it. It is my favorite shot glass that I own. It's this cutest little Lake Placid Olympic. So yeah, it's that place. I'd actually never been to Lake Placid itself, but
you got to check it out. It has this very 80s vintage feel to it. Like it almost as though it got kind of stuck in that time of the Olympic glory. There's definitely there's a ton of renovation going on now. They're rebuilding, or they have rebuilt basically the Olympic kind of museum center and their ice hockey rink, their complex there, sport complex. And they just rebuilt and added an indoor push track for the bobsled and skeleton team. And they've added there's cool attractions for people too. So now you can go and there's a roller coaster right by the track, and you can you can go and see the athletes practice, and it's more of a venue, which is really neat.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. And so for people that might not know what the hell skeleton is, they might be Googling it or be like, I'll look that up later. Can you explain to people what skeleton is, how long the course is, and then what type of skills and stuff you need to do that?
Sure. Yeah. So skeleton is a winter sport. It's done on the same track as the bobsled track. The track's made out of ice. The tracks are a little different everywhere you go. No two track is the same. They all have certain criteria that they have to meet in terms of curves and size and distance. You basically take a sled that's got two runners on the bottom, metal smooth runners, and you push as fast as you can for a certain distance, which is determined by the track. And then you jump on the sled and you lie head first, and you steer with your shoulders and your knees all the way down the track, reaching speeds of upwards of 80 miles an hour.
When you put it that way, sign me up.
It's one of those things that the closest I imagine to flying, really. But it is such an indescribable feeling to go that fast, and it's in the moment, because as you learn, right, you're so focused on what you're doing that everything kind of slows down, so it doesn't feel that fast, right? But at the end of the day, you remember that I hit my chin on the ice because it was that close to the ice, or you get elbows and you bruised and stuff. So it's an incredible feeling, and I think for anybody who's interested in kind of testing their will, that's a good one to try.
Right? Yeah, those little adventure seekers that just can't get enough. Yes. Let's do that. And how long is the course?
So the course, I think the track in Lake Placid is a mile long.
Okay, it's full mile.
Yeah, I think it is.
And how long does it take you guys to do that?
It should be under a minute. The hope is under a minute. Yeah.
I just want to make sure, people are understanding how fucking fast you're going, right? Because
the best way to get an example is obviously to watch it. But if you can get up to Lake Placid, even because we hold the North American Cup, we have actually this year we've got two World Cups coming to, I want to say, the U.S. There's definitely races. Yeah, so they can check out the website at USABS, and you can see what's going on there. But ibsf2.org, they'll show you the schedule. But just being able to stand next to the track, and as they come down, you hear the rattle, and whoosh, the speed with which, if you imagine standing next to a highway, that's how fast.
Yeah, and you're just there, and they just go oh, that's cool. That's good job.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's not like a track meet where you're watching them run around. It's just oh, okay,
that's
there
it.
They go.
Right.
And so, how many years did you compete with skeleton? Because you did for a few years, right? A handful of.
I did. I was on the developmental team from 17 to to 19, and then 19 to 20 season was my first and only year on a competitive team. So I did North American Cup. I did 2 races. I had a very difficult time kind of just keeping myself. So I got pregnant the year after I made the team or made the development.
Okay. Yep.
So pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, all of that was done while trying to maintain my spot on a U.S. team, which was absurd. I would not recommend. It was intense. And then when I finally made the team, I had actually gotten hit by a drunk driver So I was coming back from Lake Placid. I was coming back from Lake Placid on 95 in Jersey. And I was going about 80. I think the driver was doing 100 and something. And he came around to the right side. He hit the guardrail. He ping-ponged off the guardrail. And I ended up flipping 3 times in my husband's truck. And so ended up upside down with a concussion. But luckily that was the only thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so it was kind of a race not a race, but I was trying to get healed up as best as I could to go the first time. And I don't think I quite healed up. I think like most athletes, right, you kind of rush your recovery, and although the reports say you're okay and whatever, I mean, the cognitive ability and the ability to make decisions quickly while driving on the ice is not something I think that you can replicate in a clinic room, with a concussion protocol. I just don't.
Right. Yeah.
And I had a lot of difficulty getting back to where I needed to be, and unfortunately had a crash on the track in Lake Placid, and that was I ruined my helmet and I ruined a whole bunch of my gear, and I was like, and another concussion, and I was like, I think this is not. I can't keep bruising this thing. There's only so many, so get with that. So I made the option to come off that team and move forward. So
yeah, I mean, smart decision, and I mean, it's just to think of like your other history. You were driving down on tanks in Iraq, right? Not a single incident, but driving down 95 in Jersey. And
it's dangerous out there, man. There are
coming from a Marine who was in Iraq on these big ice, she'll tell you, it's terrible. I hate to hear about people having accidents like that, and I'm very glad that you survived. But you still, I've had concussions from flag football where you take a little nap on the field and wake up and you don't know where the fuck you are. I don't recommend it. They're not fun.
No, concussions are the worst. Yeah. And I mean, it was a happy accident. I mean, it sucked that it happened, but everything moving forward has been nothing but positive.
Yeah. Right. But like you're saying too, the cognitive ability post concussion and the cognitive ability that you need to do skeleton. Because, hey, which way we're doing face first here. So there has to be, in the back of your mind too, right? I mean, you just had a concussion and now you're going face first down. That's got to be a little bit of a tough one to deal with. So
yeah, it was a little rough. At the time, I because you're as an athlete, right? You're trying to compete. You're given an opportunity that most don't ever get, right? To be on Team USA and to do the thing, and we all push ourselves to our limits, and I found mine.
Yeah,
I definitely found it.
Yes. Yeah. Smart that you stepped away at an appropriate time. So then, so we've done the winter sport. We've done, a little bit of water sport. Yeah, it's a little crew. We've done the tracks. Now we have cycling.
Yeah.
100% not related to these other ones. How did you get into cycling?
So actually, Kate Ulander, who's one of the best skeleton athletes out there, U.S. skeleton athlete. She had done track cycling in one of her off seasons with Mandy Marquardt, who's the current U.S. Sprint track cyclist. And I just thought it was interesting. I mean, I watched it on TV and, took a few YouTube videos, and I was like, this is
it's insane. Cool.
Yeah. So I reached out I found out that the most local track to us for track cycling is in Pennsylvania, which is about 2.5 hours from here. So from where I live. And so I got in touch with Big Picture Cycling, which is just a team that's out there that coaches track cycling that's local to Pennsylvania. And they hooked me up with Missy Erickson, and I started basically just doing off-season training because the track was closed by the time I signed up. It was too late really to get into the game. The track's only open really from about April to November-ish timeframe. And so I trained without any concept of what track cycling was on a just road bike on a trainer throughout the whole winter. I didn't actually touch a track cycling bike until April of 2021 last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it has been like drinking from a fire hose since that day. Intense. I mean, because you can have all this, the ability you want, you can be strong and fast and powerful, but there's a lot of technique also associated with track cycling. So that's been our biggest hurdle, and my coach's biggest hurdle since starting. But it's been incredible. I mean, it has just taken off. I never expected to be where I am, in the moment, having only started 14-ish months ago.
Were you ever a cyclist, like growing up, or?
No, I mean, I would ride the road as a high schooler for fun, right? Like I would take a few like 30-mile rides, just, because it's Pennsylvania and there's rolling hills and that's what people do. But no, I never really trained cycling until about a year and a half ago.
Wow. I grew up, my dad is a cyclist, but like distance cyclist. So I grew up watching the Tour de France like all the time, and who didn't, right? But I mean, what you're doing is a completely different sport. I mean, instead of doing the 100-mile climbs, I mean, you're flying around a track. How many meters is the track?
Depends on the track. Do
you guys use meters or yards?
Meters.
Yeah. I never use meter. I'm a track athlete. I'm like, it's 400 meters away. I don't know. I don't know yards. I don't know feet. I don't know yards, but I know meters. So.
Right. So the outdoor tracks are there's a few that are 400, most are 333.
Okay.
And then the indoor tracks, I think this is how new I am to the sport. I don't really know very much. The indoor tracks are typically 250, I think.
Okay.
And the indoor ones are, I think for the most part, wood, and the outdoor ones are cement.
Yeah, I've seen the videos of them. They're wild, because I was like one of those things like, Jesus. So explain to the people too, right? Like how we're doing, because it's banked. Yeah, so there's a 42, depending on the track. The indoor tracks are like 42.5 degrees. So you're literally at a pitch. I'm not exactly sure what the outdoor track is. I think it's something around 30 degrees. So the biggest, still banked, absolutely banked. Yeah. And so the concept of the bank obviously is to use those curves to increase your speed and your momentum, and keep you on the track. But the race is essentially, the ones that I do are the sprints and what's called a keirin. The sprints are a 200-meter time trial, and then that time trial seeds you against other folks. You race 1-to-1 against each other for another 200 meters, and it's basically bracket style to the winner. Okay.
And then the keirin is 6 athletes at a time behind a motor pacer. The motor pacer kind of brings you up to speed.
Seen this one, yeah.
That's
explain it though. Yeah.
So that one, they bring you up to speed, and then it's usually 2 or 3 laps with the motor pacer. They pull off, and then you have another 2 or 3 laps to race each other to the finish line. So that one can get intense. Obviously, the biggest safety issue is the more people on the track, the more concerns you have for crashes. There's also there's what's called the omnium, which is made up of 4 other races, and that's mass starts, meaning that there's like 20 folks in a race at one time. I'm not a big fan. I'm trying to figure it out. It's not my game.
Yeah.
I do it for training.
Right.
It's not my favorite.
How do you not crash? I just have so many questions on that one, right? Because we're on a tiny track, right, where we can see the bike. I mean, it's small, right? We're looking at your bike in the background. That's a large thing to maneuver. It's not like 20 little steeplechasers or distance runners running on a track, where you can easily maneuver, and like if someone like clips you can easily just get
out of the way.
You're on a literal bicycle. And if someone clips you, it's a little bit harder to recover from.
Yeah, there are definitely crashes, and crashes can be devastating. I mean, I can't think of one athlete yet that I've worked with that doesn't have, the collarbone scar so it can be dangerous, certainly. The way that you stay safe is by being a competent rider and being respectful of, the rules. And that's the biggest thing that they drive home in the cycling community is knowing your bike and your ability. And so essentially in a race like that, there are kind of, there's not really lanes. There's the sprinter's lane, which is the only lane on the bike on the track, really. But as you pass, you have to know how to pass safely. You have to understand your own proprioception and where you are in space and who's behind you. We're constantly looking behind to our left and right. And there's obviously a room of comfortability. Mine is not as tiny as everyone else.
Yeah.
I know my abilities and I know how to put myself in a safer position. And that may not always mean that it's the fastest position or it's going to get me the spot that I need. But for now, until my abilities catch up with my strength, that's where I need to be. But ironically, the races that I'm in right now, the UCI races, are probably some of the safest races that I've been in because I'm working with professional athletes who do this. They've been doing it for 6, 12, 14 years. So
yeah,
I feel more confident being, ironically, with them. They're probably less confident being with me, but
you're like, this is a newbie here.
Yeah.
But no, that makes sense. I mean, you're not Rachel. You're the amateur, but you're not amateur versus amateur. Correct. 20 amateurs on
That's
one
much more dangerous, yes.
little course. And how fast do you guys get going on there?
So under my own power, I've gone up to just under 40 miles an hour. Behind a motor pacer, you definitely get faster than that. One fun thing to know, that the bikes they're fixed gear bikes. So when we want to change the size of the gear, we actually physically have to take the gears off and put them on. So that's, between races, you kind of have to figure out who you're racing and how fast you want to go, what your abilities are, and that determines the gear sizing. They also don't have brakes on them.
Right. Yeah. That small piece. Right. Because it would be too heavy, right, to have the brake or.
They're just a nuisance, really.
Yeah. They're a nuisance. Stop.
Yeah.
How do you stop?
You say how? Yeah, so you slow down by stop pedaling. So the gears are fixed. So your feet are going to move. You just stop applying pressure, and then because the track is banked, so long as there's nobody to your right, you kind of go up track and it slows the bike down. And then when you want to stop, you kind of just clip out and put your foot down.
It's just amazing, and so I just love it. You're such an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
Like, this roller coaster is way too slow. Let me.
You gotta move on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think that it's the speed's great, but honestly, it's the requirement to make decisions under that duress that I think is what I really enjoy. It's the mental game for both skeleton and track is very similar. Applying pressure and then making decisions under that pressure is kind of my thing.
Yeah, except for track, it's not as dangerous.
No, right.
Well, I just want to tell you, we're not quite going as fast on the track.
Right. I mean, speed wise, for sure, you're much slower on the track, but there's
it's
the element of being alone. I mean, there really is something to be said about skeleton. It's you in the sled. Like if you screw up and you crash, it's you. But if you screw up and crash in front of other people, that's the part that I worry about.
Mm-hmm. And so you started this sport in April of last year, right? Mm-hmm. You're already a 3-time national champion for masters in your age group.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No big deal. No big deal. When was the national championship?
I want to say it was September last year. Yeah, September last year.
Okay, so April, May, June, July, August, September. Okay, so you were in the sport for 5 months. 5. Mm-hmm. And then you were already a national champion. That's
in my age category.
No big deal, right?
It was. It was a surprise. I think it was a surprise to everyone involved, including myself. It's not something that we set out in April to do.
Right.
It was weird. I didn't think it was in the books for me. Right. Yeah. So incredible honor, incredible opportunity. Coach Missy Erickson was literally the person that got me from not know how to ride a bike to that stage, and so I can't stress how important a good coach is to somebody, and not just her coaching ability, but the way that she can help you with your mental state, which to be honest, obviously anybody coming off of Team USA for any sport, I encourage them to get a sports psych and talk about your experiences and where you go from that, because even at the college level, losing your identity as an athlete competitively is huge. It changes who you are, and it's very important that you work with someone who can help you realize that your value is not tied to your athleticism, and there's so much more out there to see and do. So her, and then I did the minute I came off of skeleton, I went and found a sports psych. Her name's Erica Force. She's amazing, and I highly encourage for mental health, but also for for your athletic competitiveness. You got to have that component. It makes a world of difference. There's no way that I would be a national champion if I had not got sports psych involved. So
it's fantastic. I'm a huge proponent of mental health. On the show, I had a psychotherapist and a social worker on last week.
Sweet.
Talking just about mental health. And that is something that, I've talked with a lot of the athletes about it. I had a huge struggle of say, what is life after, college athletics, right? Because it's like the gold standard is, D1 athletics. Hey, you do it, you win, some medals, you have all this, and then you're just released into the world. And all those things that you were running from, for me, they caught up to me in a big way. It was like, I was using track as my drug. And when I no longer had track, it was like, it all came crashing down for sure. So yeah, it's a big thing. And I can definitely see how, Team USA, right? You had all these things going on, and then you had the injuries and the accident, and it's like, who are you? And you were still away. If you were a mom, you're a
I was
coach,
fortunate,
and, you're an RN, but it's still like that individual identity of who Emily is. Emily is an athlete,
right? Yeah, right. And that's the best way to. I think I was very lucky going into a sport later in life, because you're right. Like, a lot of these athletes don't have anything outside of the sport. I had my job, my profession. I had my husband. I had my kid. So obviously those things kind of tie you down to a reality that's separate from your athleticism. But I think the biggest thing that I've kind of helped to kind of form and shape this is you are an athlete, and an athlete doesn't have to be defined by any particular sport. It doesn't even have to be defined necessarily by being competitive all the time. And I think that really helps for people to transition from, being competitive to maybe not so competitive, but you're always an athlete, right? It's just a matter of what capacity and what form and for how much. And I think that's been at least my mantra and my key. And it helps me to be able to transition. So at some point you recognize, like, I know track cycling will get to a point where I'm done, and it's not forever. It's not always. And, but I will always be an athlete, and I will always find an athletic outlet.
Yeah. I love that. And, that's kind of like my thing, right? Where before we jumped on, I was like, I do Spartan races, and, I'm not competing elite, you know what I mean? I age group, but it's still, it gives me something to train for instead of just going to the gym and tooling around and maybe skipping the run. It gives me like a reason, like, all right, these are the workouts that I'm going to do, and stuff might be hard, but it's that. Exactly. It gives you a goal, right? You have a date. This is what we're doing on this date. So I totally get it. And, I was talking to, Tiffany Porter not too long ago, 3-time Olympian. And she was, she's like, I haven't worked out. She's like, I did like 3 workouts in 5 months, post retirement. Cause she's kind of like that. Who am I? And so I was telling her, like, kind of find like a new skill to learn, right? Like, they like, so we'll see if she starts posting some tennis videos up there of just something completely different, right? Because we don't need to power lift every day. You do for your sport, but it's like, what do you do, right? She's not going to go put hurdles out on a track and then just do those for fun.
And that's the cool thing, is that once you have this ability, right? We all have this ability of being fit and being strong that not many athletes or people really in general get, right? You can take that ability and apply it anywhere to a new skill. And the concept of learning a new skill is so healthy in so many ways, right? Like for me, learning track cycling, it's intense and it's hard, and I have, I'm watching video and I'm watching other athletes and I'm practicing with my bike, and that's all good, from a healthcare perspective. That is so healthy for you to do, right? Like, keeps your brain intact, keeps you motivated, gives you purpose, and it allows you an outlet for this skill that you learn, your ability that you learned, in your college years or in your USA years.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm excited to go bouldering with my buddy Leo on Friday night. That's how cool I am. I go bouldering on Friday night sometimes. Woo! Because like they put up some new walls in the gym, and we saw some new problems, as they call them, bouldering, that we didn't get around to last week. So it's like, I'm actually genuinely excited to like work on the skill, and I might fall, and that's okay.
I love it.
They have a ton of mats, and I'm not like you. Okay. I don't necessarily need the speed and the danger, but I do like climbing without the rope. And, I like the whole ability that I could fall, but if I fall, it's not big. My whole thing is, if I don't fall, that means I haven't pushed myself hard enough.
Yeah.
That means I never tried anything that was too challenging that day. And so I need to fall at least once every single session. It's usually more than once.
I need to fail once. I like that goal.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. You really do need to fail. Okay. So September, we are a 3-time national champion. Which 3 events did you win?
So I won the sprint. So the 200 sprint.
200 meter.
I won the 500 meter time trial. and I won the team event.
Okay.
Yeah. So the team event is 3 folks up on a bike, 3, 2, 1, go. The first person does a lap, the person behind them does a lap, and the person behind them does a lap. And each person pulls off, successive laps. So the third person in the list does a total of 3 laps. The second one does 2. The first one does 4.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you want, obviously, your good starter and your power athlete to be the first person. And essentially what they're doing is they're assisting in terms of drag. So the person P2 and P3 get a little less work because of what P1 did, and so on and so forth. And I literally met these 2 women from Texas like 24 hours before the sprint event. And I had never done a team event in my life. And we pulled it together, and we did really well. Our time was the same as the junior national time, I think. So pulling that out of nowhere was fun. And now we have like a little group, and I've met these women that are really cool, and so we can work on that. But
which position were you?
I was 1 because I didn't know what I was doing, and I have absolutely no endurance. Like, I literally am just a match, right? So they were like, just get out and go really freaking fast,
and we'll just follow you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. And so now, have you had any other competitions since?
Yes, I'm actually in the middle of the most intense competitive season so far. So that was masters, and so I did very well in masters, but not just in terms of like being a good master athlete, but my times were good enough that my coach and I decided we should really go for the elite opportunities and see what we can do.
Oh, why not? Sure.
Right. So we've been working towards that. So I had my first elite pro-am race 3 weeks ago, which is just American athletes up on Traxler Town's track. They call it Friday Night Lights. It's such a cool event, and so much. If you're in Pennsylvania, you got to check this out. It's in Traxler Town, Pennsylvania, near Philly. But the vibe is like, it's like a football game, like a college football game, right? So there's like a beer garden and like people, cheering you on and slamming the boards and, under the lights, and we had fireworks, whatever. So that was my first like big pro-am event. And there's categories in terms of racing. So you have to be a category 2 or above. Categories start at 4, 3, 2, 1. And so obviously I started as a 4 last year, but because of my national titles, you go to 2. Okay. That was 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago was my first international UCI race, which happened to be at Traxler Town, Pennsylvania. So I raced. This story is crazy. So I'm doing the sprints, and my coach is like, hey, I qualified for, a certain, you basically do the 200 meter sprint time trial, and then they qualify you based on that. I got put up against some woman from Belgium I didn't know. My coach was sitting next to me about 2 minutes before the race. She's like, do I know who you're racing? And I was like, that's not a good question. I don't. I clearly don't. If you're asking, I don't, right?
Right, yeah.
So we get on the track, and they do their introductions, and they introduce me, and then they introduce her, Nikki. I'm gonna butcher her name, de Grendele, and she is the 2018 Kieran World Champion.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no. Like, okay, this is gonna go great. So obviously she won. She's super graceful human, all smiles, like lovely human being to have the honor to race against. And I don't think I did too bad. I came in 2/10 behind her, so it wasn't terrible.
Oh, okay,
I'll take it. So that was my first big international event, and then I had another one last weekend where I did my first Kieran ever, which happened to be an international race, which was also terrifying because you're going up against her, world champion, Mandy Marquardt, national champion, is a woman from Guatemala. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, but these are all heavy hitters in the cycling community. So, but I'm holding my own. I'm middle of the pack in terms of my racing, so I'm not doing bad. Yeah, so I'm very happy. I hit a PR last week, so things are going well. I have another UCI event. We have 2 more international races at Traxler Town this year. So that's this Friday and Saturday, and then next Friday and Saturday.
Dang.
Yeah. And then I get a little break before elite nationals. So I'm hoping to hopefully get some national titles at the elite level, and move on from the masters level. So we'll see. I mean, I'm exhausted, but I'm enjoying the ride, and it's been
literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively. Yeah.
Wow. So tell me about what training is like for you. What is an average? Do you do like kind of a week training cycle? Do you have a 2-week training cycle? How How is that set up?
Yeah, Missy builds, I don't know anything about training, so she really does a lot of the heavy lifting for me. And she builds the programs, and I try to do them as best I can. But there's a lot of, as anyone knows who has a kid or a job, there's a lot of trying to do the best you can given your circumstances. So the training involves weightlifting, at least in season right now, we're weightlifting twice a week. And then we have cycling every day. It just depends on whether it's going to be on a trainer or at the track. The track, like I said, is 2.5 hours from me. So I'm spending about 10 hours a day driving, or 10 hours a week rather driving.
Right. Yeah.
So we've kind of boiled it down to being on the track Tuesday, Thursday, staying Thursday night to be able to race Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it looks like. Training happens wherever it happens. I've taken my bike to work. I have done my workouts in the parking lot. I routinely travel with a barbell in the back of my car last year. You just do what you got to do when you do it. And the biggest recommendation I would give is don't be afraid of looking like an idiot because that's the only way you get it done. If I have to lift in my scrubs in between, cases, that's what I got to do. If I have to work out, in my nursing shoes because I forgot my lifters, that's what I got to do. I'm not afraid to be embarrassing.
Well, that's fantastic. And you got some cool stories and shit, you already have hardware. So that is, and so in the, you talked about, you did the age group and now you're doing the elite. Are a lot of the women younger, same age, older? What's are you the grandma?
I'm grandma. I'm totally the grandma. So yes, they're all younger than me. I don't know any of them at the elite level that has a kid. And at least I haven't met them yet. Maybe no, that's not true. I've met one lady. And they've all been doing the sport at minimum, 5+ years. It's like I said, it's like drinking from a fire hose. It's great. It's fun. It's terrifying. It's an incredible opportunity that I'm just going to take to the very end. So.
It's just right because I'm thinking, do some Spartan races. I race an age group. There's an elite division. I have. I'm not going to but you were like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Just jump on.
What's the worst that can happen? The worst that happens is that I don't make Team USA. I don't get to compete on elite level, and I go back to doing masters and enjoying it. And that there's just no lose at this point.
It's like you've already won everything in masters, so why not, go ahead and see what you can do. So talk to me about too. You said making Team USA for USA Cycling. That would be, I assume, at the national championship, and that goes to a world championship, or how does that work?
Yeah. So, so like most Olympic level federations, they all have their own criteria. Winning a national title doesn't necessarily make you a national team member.
Okay. So it's not like track and field trials where you win. Okay.
No. So there's a lot of steps in terms of being evaluated and accepted onto the developmental team, and then going from there. I will be going to World's Masters this year just because it's a new track against new people that I've never competed. And if I could win a world champion, why not, right?
You qualify for, I think anytime you qualify for literally anything in the world championship, you should
do it. Yeah, do it.
You should go.
So, cherry on top would be, who doesn't want to compete for their country on an elite level?
Yeah.
That would obviously be the highlight of my life. If I could make another U.S. team, that would be incredible. I'm all I can do is put myself in the position to have the opportunity and work as hard as I possibly can. And so Aaron Hartwell he's the coach for USA Cycling for track cycling, and he's been incredibly gracious to allow me to kind of train with them. And they're here now working in Trexler Town, so I get to have the opportunity to be around these athletes and work with them, which is it's a godsend because really I have no one else to train with. So that's all, all I can do is put myself out there and hope for the best, and we'll see where it goes. But that would be a dream.
It's fantastic. So where is the World Championship for Masters?
Masters World Championships is going to be in LA, and it's in September. So brand new track, brand new location against people I've never met. So we'll put it out there and see what happens.
Okay. Are you doing the team sprint out there too?
I'm hoping to. We got to. So I'm working with Jen Wagner right now for sure. But we need a third person. So it's always.
Oh, okay.
The women's side is always thin. So if you're interested in track cycling, get out here because we need folks. You got to find athletes who are interested and who want to work with you. But that's the hope.
That's fantastic. And so, what type of qualities make a track cyclist, right? Like what, because you said if you have interest, but what would be, what sports do you think transition easier into it? Talk to me about that.
So, I mean, I think if you're doing the longer ones, the aerobic capacity ones, right? Like the distances or the omniums, from what I understand, my coach has told me that soccer players make very good track cyclists because of their ability to know spatial, like how to maneuver well and keep speed and have a really good aerobic capacity. So soccer athletes, power athletes for sure, obviously for sprints, right?
Yeah.
Like you're strong and fast, you're going to be strong and fast on a bike, hopefully. And then skill is really the part that you got to work on. But I think soccer is the one that she really thinks is a good fit.
Okay, that's awesome. No big deal, but in Kentucky on our vacation, we did race on the paddle boats and definitely won.
You got to, right? You got to represent Penn State right there. That's awesome.
Fantastic. Well, I know like you need to get to bed soon because what time is your workout tomorrow?
I have to be in Pennsylvania by about 9ish, so I need to leave here by about 6ish, which means I have to get up around 5ish to pack. So
okay, yeah, and you have a child too.
I do.
But he's 4.5. He can make himself his own breakfast.
I have an incredible husband who's very supportive of all of this, and honestly, our kid is. I don't mean to brag, but he's pretty damn awesome. So he makes life very easy.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming to join me. I will absolutely be keeping in touch because I want to see how you do this year, not just at World. Obviously, I want to know World. When in September is it?
Let me look. Do you mind real quick?
Do it. I'm a September baby, so I want to know if it's my birthday weekend or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is. My coach is going to kill me for not knowing this off the top of my head.
I know, you should.
Missy, I'm sorry. Don't be mad. Let's see. Calendar. Looks like it is in September. Masters Worlds is September 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. So that whole last week there will be up in LA.
Okay. Right before my birthday. I'm the 30th. So
Perfect. I will win you a world champ just for your birthday.
Oh my God. I really do want that as my birthday gift. Not kidding. So if you can go ahead and dedicate it to me and my birthday, it'll be the big 3-8.
Yes. So, right. What is it exactly?
It's a big one. Obviously, guys, it's a big one. It's
Love it. Hey, if you don't mind, I wanted to thank I Am, I Can, I Will, I Do, which is Christine Dercole's team for supporting me. They've been huge emotional, psychological, and financial support to be able to do this. They're powered by Vital Performance, so if you need to take some supplements, Vital Performance is where it's at. And thanks to Missy, my coach. She's great.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for swinging by. I really, really appreciate it. I'm like, oh God, it's already an hour. I got to go to bed. So I learned so much about cycling, so much about skeleton. It's like, you don't understand. Skeleton has been one of those things that I've talked about multiple times. I'm like, that's just crazy. Who does this? And they actually have like an actual person. You're right here. You're right here.
Glad I could fill that for you.
Oh man, I know. Next like time there's Olympics for Winter Olympics. Let me ask you, so Emily, tell me about this.
Text me real quick, like what's going on? What is happening?
Right. Yeah. Who are we cheering for? What's going on? What's the strategy? What's the 4-1-1? I need the whole inside scoop on the bobsled and the skeleton. Apparently not the luge. We don't speak.
No, we don't really.
Yeah, we don't sit with them, but the skeleton is
all over it.
Is the one that we're all over. All right, well, you have a great night, and thank you again so much.
Thanks, you too. Thanks.
Bye. That was incredible. As you guys know, I love Penn State, so we had a Penn Stater, and I love new sports. So we had a couple fantastic new sports. The good old skeleton, the racing down the 80 miles an hour down a mile head first, no big deal. And then, wow, I mean, I cannot imagine starting a sport within 5 months, being the best at it in the country, in your age group. That doesn't process in my mind. Obviously, it processes it in her mind. And so now to go elite, to be racing against women that are, 10 years, her junior, don't have kids, and like she said, being in the middle of the pack, I think she's beating like half the people out there. So what a phenomenal athlete and what a badass woman So on that note,
this has been a Chicago Clubhouse Network production.
bye.